Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Smash Ultimate Mod Workshop. In this episode, I'll be going over how to get player inputs. I'll cover how to check for A, B, and jump button presses, as well as the D-pad. Lastly, I'll cover how to check the direction of the left stick, as it's a little bit more complicated. We'll be using one move throughout the entire video, that being Zelda's up taunt. Here I have the script for it. If you're looking for the script for a taunt in WooBoy's GitHub repository, you probably won't find it. That's because taunts, at least most of them, don't have hitboxes, so the scripts are blank and they're not in the repo. You can still run code in them by calling them like you would any other script. Here I'm actually overriding the left and right facing up taunts at the same time, as some characters have different scripts for them. Firstly, I'm going to add a call that means that all of the code that's going to be ran will be run on frame 10. The function we'll be using to check for buttons is naturally control module check button on. It only takes two parameters, a BOMA and the button that you're checking. A list of all of the buttons that you can check can be found in your Lua const file from lines 849 to 868. Before I tell the game what to do, I'm going to first mention something important. You're not actually checking for an A or a B button press. What you're actually doing is checking for the button that corresponds to what the current player set normal attack in their controller settings or special attack to for a B button. Usually they're A and B, but be wary of this just in case. Let's say you're checking for B button presses. What you're actually checking for is if a special was attempted to be done. So let's say someone has B set to grab for some reason. If they were to press B and do a grab, the function that checks for B button presses wouldn't actually be ran. Oh, and then there's also two more functions called check button off, which checks if a button is not being pressed, and check button trigger, which only returns true if the specified button just started being pressed the frame the function was run on. Finally, we're ready to code. Now, let's make a long list that checks a bunch of buttons and if they're being held. As you can see, here's A, B, jump, D-pad up, D-pad down, D-pad left, and D-pad right. And what about what happens when you press these buttons? Since all I've taught so far in the series is hitboxes, effects, and how to heal and add damage, that's all I've done here. If you're pressing A 10 seconds into Zelda's up taunt, it'll summon the hitbox for Electric Wind Godfist. If B is pressed, it'll show the background for Zelda's Final Smash. For the jump button, it'll do one of the effects for when a player dies. D-pad up does 10 self-damage. D-pad down heals 10. D-pad left does 3 self-damage. And D-pad right heals 3. I'm also going to add another bit that tells the game to clear the hitboxes one frame later. Before I get into the left stick, I'm going to build this and run it in Smash to make sure that it all works. Because I decided on frame 10, the timing's going to be a bit strict, but it'll work fine. And now that we're in Smash, I'm going to try all this out. So, 10 frames into up taunt, if I hold A, it summons the hitbox for Electric Wind Godfist. If we hold B, we get the effect for Zelda's Final Smash. And it goes away eventually, I promise. Then if we hold jump, we get that effect. And then if we hold up taunt, 10 damage. Hold left taunt, 13. Right on the D-pad, heals 3. And down on the D-pad, heals 10. Great, it all works perfectly. Going back to Notepad, to get the X position of the left stick, you can run control module get stick X. The Y position is the exact same thing, but with Y subbed out. The X function returns a number between -1 and 1, where 0 is in the middle, -1 is far left, and 1 is far right. For Y, -1 is all the way down, and 1 is all the way up. Here's a little bit of code that just says, if the left stick is in the bottom left portion, summon a hitbox with the sleep effect. Also, if you've passed geometry, you should know that with the X and Y position, you can find the angle with the arctangent of Y over X. But I just did my AP Calc BC exam not too long ago, and if I have to do trig one more time, I think my brain will actually melt, so I'm not going to show that as an example. So if you remember what we did for the left stick, we made it so If the left stick is anywhere in the bottom left region while we're doing up taunt, it'll summon a giant hitbox that puts the enemy to sleep. So if we try this with holding up on the left stick, nothing happens. Down right, nothing. If we try down and left, we get the sleeping hitbox. Now, I know that you can't really see my inputs, so just trust that it actually works. Or you can take a look at the source code, which, as always, will be available in the description under item 1. I hope this helped, and happy modding!